This is a map of Mexico with major cities labeled. The biggest city in Mexico would be Mexico City, which has roughly 12,294,193 people living there. Some major landmarks of Mexico are Chapultepec, Tulum, the National Museum of Anthropology, Chapultepec Castle, and Palacio de Bellas Artes. Famous notable people that are from Mexico are Carlos Fuentes, who was a Mexican novelist and essayist that wrote books like The Death of Artemio Cruz, Aura, and Where the Air is Clear. Salma Hayek, who was a Mexican actor that was in the movie Spy Kids 3D Game Over, From Dusk Till Dawn, and Grown Ups 1 and 2. And finally, Frida Kahlo, who was a Mexican painter that painted Self-Portrait with Monkey, Self-Portrait with Thorn Necklace and Hummingbird, and also Me and My Parrots. Here's a collage of images from Mexico.
Much of Mexican culture revolves around religious values and the church, as well as the concept of family and inclusiveness. Around 82% of Mexicans identify themselves as Catholic, according to the CIA, although many of them have incorporated pre-Hispanic Mayan elements as part of their faith. Such examples would be holidays such as El Día de los Muertos or Day of the Dead. The next largest branch of Christianity is Protestantism, which has increased in the last 100 years. Another fun fact is that Mexico has the greatest number of Jehovah's Witnesses in the world, which is surprising because of this Catholic-dominated country. There are also small communities of other religions, such as Muslims, Jews, and Buddhists. The overwhelming majority of Mexicans speak Spanish. According to the CIA, Spanish is spoken by 92.7% of the Mexican population. However, Spanish is not defined as the official language of Mexico by its legislation. Other languages come from its indigenous population, such as Nahuatl, which has 1.4 million speakers, Yucatec Maya, spoken by over 750,000 people, and Mixtec, whose speakers amount to 500,000. Mexico culinary norms vary widely based on income level and social class. The diet of working class Mexicans includes staples such as corn or wheat tortillas, along with beans, rice, tomatoes, chili peppers, and chorizo, a type of pork sausage. Empanadas, which are handheld pastry pockets, can contain savory or sweet fillings. Many Mexicans love spicy foods full of heat. Middle to upper class diets closely resemble American and European ones and include a wide variety of food items prepared in a wide variety of culinary styles. Mexico is, however, known for its tequila, which is made from agave cactus that is well suited for the climate of central Mexico. Soda is a very popular drink in Mexico, and the country has a well-developed beverage industry. Poverty in Mexico is reflected in the country's poor ratings in all sorts of fields: infrastructure and institutions, education, labor market efficiency, innovation, among others, you name it. The direct consequence of this is that over 12 million Mexicans work in the black market without any social security of any form. This means that they can be often exploited. Nearly 25 million Mexicans make less than $14 a day, and 25% of the workforce is underemployed, and nearly 5% is unemployed. Rural workers have average salaries that are 3 to 4 times less than the urban worker. Economic growth does not help the poor Mexicans and instead only benefited the rich and widened the gap of income based on a 1990 research. There have, however, been attempts to combat this poverty. From about 65% of extreme poverty in the 1950s, the number went down to 20 to 25% from the 1960s to 1995. However, the number of Mexicans living below the poverty line increased with the 1980s economic crisis in the same way for the 1995 crisis caused extreme poverty to surge to 35%. Since then, things have been getting gradually better as the economy started recovering, until the global financial crisis and the chaos with drug cartels started just recently. With 172,888 prisoners and 13 out of every 1,000 people charged with crime, Mexico has a bad reputation for crime. Most crimes, such as rape and homicide, is due to Mexico's high rate of drug traffickers. Over 500,000 kilos of illegal drugs are seized every year, and this is not even counting the ones that are not caught. The highest rates of crime are in Mexico City, which is also Mexico's primate city.
So obviously there is a great deal of corruption in Mexico, where the rich and poor have an ever-growing gap between their socioeconomic status, power in government, and even rights. The NGO that we chose is called Mexican Transparency, which is exactly a group that fights these three things and even more. Their main goal is to rid Mexico of corruption, not only from the government, but from the populace as well, involving bribery, hate crimes, and targets that can all result in a specific party ruling, preventing another from continuing, or not even include them at all. Mexican Transparency have succeeded for the most part. For example, the quote for Robert Clickard says that monopoly plus that discretion equals corruption, and this is how they did it. The biggest factor is they promote education, meaning that possibly the future generation can make Mexico a post-industrialized country and be the force for change. Also, in addition, they encourage building a culture of respect for the rule of law and research to better understand how corruption works. This way that they can keep corruption at a standstill. Corruption can also lead to human rights abuse, and they are a big advocate of this, and they want to pass laws that makes any form of corruption, rights abuse, homosexual abuse, etc. punishable by law to promote friendliness to one another. Well, now you're probably wondering, how do you think an NGO like this has such a big voice and funding to make all this happen and continue contributing to all of these problems? The answer is United Nations, more specifically the United States of America and Western Europe. Mexican Transparency is actually a subdivision of a much larger corporation called International Transparency, which Mexican Transparency is just sort of specialized for Mexico and is partnered with the UN in order to gain these benefits, in order to push these morals that they and everyone else stand for.
If you are planning a trip to Mexico, there are two ways to enter Mexico from Dallas: flying and driving. If you are looking to drive to Mexico, have fun, because you're going to need a lot of legal documents, paperwork, and you might even need to buy separate car insurance if you're renting a car. Flying to Mexico only requires a passport and is the preferred way to travel to Mexico. Flight prices range from $215 to $315 depending on the city. Speaking of money, you will need to convert your dollars into pesos. Unlike some other Central American countries, US dollars are not legal tender in Mexico. To look for the optimal time to travel to Mexico, you need to consider two things: the amount of tourists going in and the average temperature during each month. To avoid crowds during your vacation, do not travel during the holidays. To avoid extreme heat, avoid summer months and early autumn, as temperatures during this time can go up to a sweltering 120 degrees Fahrenheit. With both of these in mind, the best months to travel to Mexico are April and May. Many 5-star hotels are in Mexico, however the majority are in beachside cities like Cancun, Los Cabos, and Playa del Carmen. Still, there are some cities like Guadalajara and Mexico City that have them. If you want to learn more about Mexico's history and culture, Mexico City is your best option, as it has many historical sites, which we mention later, and hosts many native and pop performances. Places like Cancun and Playa del Carmen are the primary destinations for young people and families due to their gorgeous beaches. However, if you're a history and humanities freak, like some teachers think we are, the best destinations are Mexico City, Puerto Vallarta, and Mérida, which are home to ruins of the ancient Aztecs and Mayans, as well as colonial remnants. Mexico City's central plaza, called Zócalo, is the center of daily art performances such as traditional Aztec dances, as well as concerts for pop stars and music groups big and small. It was made after the Spanish conquest of the Aztecs. Mexico City also has Templo Mayor, an Aztec ruin devoted to 3 deities: Ehecatl, Huitzilopochtli, and Tlaloc. Another well-known Aztec site located in the state of Mexico is the ancient city of Teotihuacan, home to the Pyramid of the Sun and Moon. These pyramids' massive size, as well as its odd similarities to the pyramids of Giza, make it the center of conspiracy and discussion between historians and scientists. Perhaps the most famous and iconic ruin of ancient Mexico is El Castillo in the Mayan city of Chichen Itza. This structure was the site of mass hysteria in 2012. Since then, tourists have gathered in Chichen Itza, Teotihuacan, and many other Mexican cities to admire these towering testaments to the capabilities of the ancient Mexicans.